Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited for today's video. Today I'm going to be telling y'all about all the books I wish I could read for the first time again and have the same feeling that I had the first time I read the books, because I love them so much and I really enjoyed reading them the first time. It didn't take me any pondering or anything to know if I loved these books, because they were just amazing from the jump, and while I was in it I was completely, wholeheartedly, fully into the book. So let's just get right into it. The first book that's right in front of me is what I'm gonna grab. So it's The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book I read like 2 or 3 years ago and immediately fell in love with the storyline. I love anything old Hollywood, and this book is so much of that. And I don't know, I just love everything about it. It's so good. I love Evelyn Hugo as a person. I think the plot line was so good, and just all the twists and turns that the story takes you on are amazing. If you don't know what this book is about, it's about a girl, and she's an author, a journalist, I believe, and she gets a call to write a story for Evelyn Hugo, like a magazine story for Evelyn Hugo, and she's the only one that Evelyn wants. And she doesn't know why, but she's just like, okay, whatever. This Evelyn Hugo's a very famous old Hollywood actress, and so yeah, she basically is learning her life and writing about her life through her 7 husbands. And I don't know if that was a good description, but I love this book and it's so good. And I've re-listened to it on audiobook and I got a similar feeling, but I have never reread the physical book, and I would love to reread this book. I feel like it would give me the same feeling. The next book is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. Y'all already know. I really shouldn't have to say too much, because y'all already know I talk about this book nonstop. I love this book. I love this series. To not be too repetitive, I won't say too much, but I just love the way this book made me feel while I was reading it. And I told y'all when I first started reading it, it made me, like, I knew immediately that I was gonna want to reread it, like 2 chapters into the book. So duh. And if you don't know what it's about, I'll give you a quick. It's basically about a girl named Magnolia and a boy named BJ, and they live in like a high society London, and they have a group of friends and they just hang out. They're rich, and it's like love and just their day-to-day lives, but like mainly like their love story and what went wrong in this book. Really good, really beautiful. It goes so much further than that into the rest of the series, but I love the first book. The next book is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. I adore this book so much. It is so I think I'm gonna reread this book in the fall, so we'll see if it gives me the same 5-star feeling. I have a high hopes that it will, but I love this book. It's basically about a girl and a guy, and they were like best friends growing up in their childhood, because she moved to the cabin that was next to his. She never lived there like full time. Her family just stayed there for holidays and stuff, but they became best friends through that, and then they fall out, and it's 10 years later and they kind of bump into each other again. But that's what this book is about, and I love it. I love it. It has, like, look at the cover. It has everything in this cover. Did you get the cover? Okay. Love it. The next book is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I don't think I've talked about this book yet on this channel, but I read this book for the first time in 9th grade and immediately fell in love with it. I just knew that this was, I haven't stopped thinking about this book since then, and it's been some years. I love this book. I never reread this book, but I do want to reread it, and there's like annotations in it from school because I read it for school. It's basically about this circus that pops up randomly, and it'll appear in the middle of the night, nobody knows, and it has a bunch of cool tents in there where you can do different things and like a wishing tree and all that good stuff. But then there's these 2 people, a girl and a guy, and they're growing up to kind of like and tuning their skills with magic. I think they have magic skills, I believe, like they're magicians. Yeah, 2 young magicians. Magic skills is crazy. And they're basically like getting them ready to fight against each other, and that's like the backstory, well, the main story. into the backstory of the circus. I don't know, there's a lot going on in this book, but it's so good. It's so magical and so whimsical. I craved a feeling like this book gave me for years after reading it. The next book, now we're getting into like fantasies after, like that's the first one, I guess. And this is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second book in the ACOTAR series. This book is my favorite, I believe, out of the whole series. Probably this or A Court of Wings and Ruin. I like A Court of Silver Flames. It just kind of drags, but that's besides the point. This book is amazing. I like it because of the characters and the plot line and the romance and everything about, I don't know, I just really love this book. Like, I read the first book and I was like, I don't know why people are so hype about this series. And then I read this and I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I get it. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna say because it's a sequel, so I can't really say too much. Okay, this one's a thick one. This one, I love the entire series, and if I could get the feeling I got when I read the series for the first time again, I would. But it's more so this book specifically because this is probably my favorite in the series, and it is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. Y'all, she's a big one. She's a big one. I love this book. Sometimes I think about this book and I cry. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I'm not gonna cry. It's so beautiful. I love the main characters in this book. I love the storyline. I'm gonna keep saying that about everything, but this series as a whole is so, it feels like home to me. It feels like home. I read this for the first time last summer and fell in love, like every other book that I just mentioned. But I can't stop talking about these characters, the found family, the action in this book, the romance in this book, and just the feeling of, this is one of the first female main characters that I read about that was just so strong and just never backed down from anything, and I love that about her. So yeah, I love this series, and this book specifically just shows so much of that, and there's so much growth seen from all the characters in this, because this is the last book. An honorary mention from the series is gonna be Queen of Shadows, because I love that book as well, but this is probably my favorite. And if I could reread it for the first time, I would, and I would bawl my eyes out, because I will reread it again, but yeah. The next book is The Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I read this book last summer as well, and this book I'm mentioning just because it made me feel so excited about reading again when I read it. Like, I was 50 pages in and I remember texting my best friend like, oh my gosh, I just started this book and it's so good. Like, I was hooked into this book from the very first page. It was so good. It kept me entertained throughout the whole book. I love the romance, I love the drama, and that feeling it gave me of being excited to read again was like no other. So if I could read this for the first time again and experience those feelings, I definitely would. And the last two books are gonna be two of my favorite books ever. I don't know, two of my favorite books, series, whatever. The first one is Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Infernal Devices series. It's the prequel to The Mortal Instruments, and y'all, all I have to say is Will Herondale. If you have never read this book and you like romantasy, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Y'all, please read this book. Please read this series. I read this like 10 years ago, and it still has a special place in my heart, and I still cannot stop talking about it. If you don't know, it's about shadow hunters, and they're like part angel, part human, and they basically just kill demons. And then there's warlocks in the world, and like witches and werewolves and vampires, and they're like, what are they called? I don't even remember what they're called. And this is also the 1800s in London. So if you like that time period and you like that vibe, you're gonna eat this up. This book is so good. I love it because Will Herondale is in it, and he is my favorite person ever in terms of books. And the other book that I was going to talk about is City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare. This is the last book in the Mortal Instruments series, and this is one of the series that got me into reading. So of course it's on the list, but not just because of that. This book was so good to me when I was reading it. Like, I remember reading this book and not being able to put it down because it was that good. That's good. The action, again, like, I'm gonna keep saying the same stuff, y'all. The action, the found family, the romance, the comedy. In her books, she always has comedy. It's always gonna be a little sprinkle of hilariousness, and you'll see that in this book as well. But all the books in this series, all the books in the Infernal Devices series, all the books in the Last Hours and the Dark Artifices, like, I love all her books when it comes to Shadowhunters. I just love that idea and that world so much that I will always eat it up. She could write a whole nother series and I would read it all over again because I love the world that she built. It's beautiful. It's amazing. If you haven't read it yet, please read it. But yes, if I could feel everything I felt when I read this book for the first time again, I would, because there were so many happy tears, so many sad tears. There was giggles and kicking my feet and squealing and just like, yes, from those moments. And yeah, I would do it all over again if I could. And then I'm gonna mention a couple of books. So the first one is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I read this book last year and fell, God, I said that every time. I read this book last year though, and I loved it from the jump. It was so good. I love the representation of Black romance and marriage and just the realistic experiences that the characters went through that I never saw portrayed in a book before, because I just hadn't read a book like that before. Not to say that this is the first one that has ever done it, but I just never read a book like that before, and I loved it. It was everything I needed plus some, and I felt so seen, so heard when I read that book. And then the last two are books. I know I said that the other ones were the last two, but these are just honorary mentions because I just read them. So I'm like, can I count them? But I'm like, yes, I can, because I felt that way when I was reading them. Like, I'm gonna want to reread these books, and these books are making me so happy. And there is Happy Place by Emily Henry and Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I read these books and they both were just making me so giddy and so happy. I felt so seen reading this book, and I love that feeling of feeling seen and feeling heard and important, and just like this book. Yes, but also this book because it just made me so happy and giddy, and it made me feel like I was 14 again. So yes, those are all the books that if I could read them again for the first time, I would, without a doubt, hands down. I would do almost anything to read these books again for the first time, because they're just all beautiful in their own special ways, and I love the feeling they gave me. I'm not saying that if you read them you're gonna get the same feeling, but you might. So give it a try. Give it a try. And come back whenever you get that feeling and tell me, because I just love to hear it. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope I see you in the next one.